what is the anti-aging blueprint that doesn't rely on supplementation, doesn't rely on gimmicks, and doesn't rely on starvation? Well, Dr. Michael Greger breaks it down for us.
There may be no such thing as dying of old age. Elaborate on that, my friend.
Yes, isn't that interesting? Yes, based on an autopsy series that looked at, let me see if I can, 42,000 consecutive autopsies. Those who lived to be 100, the centenarians, were found to have succumbed to disease in 100% of cases, though most were considered, even by their physicians, to have been healthy just prior to their death. Not a single one died of old age. They died from disease, most commonly heart disease, the number one killer of men and women in general. And as we know, there's only one diet that's ever been shown to help reverse our leading cause of death in the majority of patients. That is a plant-based diet. If that is all a plant-based diet can do, reverse the number one killer of men and women, shouldn't that kind of be the default diet until proven otherwise? And the fact that it also be so effective in preventing, arresting, or reversing other leading killers like high blood pressure and type 2 diabetes would seem to make the case for plant-based eating simply overwhelming at this point.
And when it comes to plant-based eating, you have identified your anti-aging 8. Let's review what those are and how they got featured into all of the recipes that are in your book.
Yeah, so the anti-aging 8 is meant to highlight specific foods and actions that have the potential to offer the best opportunities to slow aging and improve longevity as a complement to my daily dozen checklist of all the healthiest of healthy foods and habits I encourage people to fit into their daily routine, available as a free app, Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen. This is something that featured in my book, How Not to Die. And in terms of anti-aging foods, according to the data from the Global Burden of Disease Study, the largest systematic analysis of risk factors in human history, the largest life expectancy gains would be expected from eating more legumes, which are beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils, right? So if there's only one thing we can do, legumes for longevity, hummus for health, whether it's beans or lentil soup or bean dip or whatever. And this is presumed to be because it's they're the most concentrated source of prebiotics like fiber-resistant starch, which can feed the probiotic good bacteria in our gut like lactobacillus and bifidobacteria to make beneficial postbiotics like butyrate and acetate, which can reduce inflammation, boost immunity, and improve muscle strength in frail individuals. Now, legumes rule the roost on a per serving basis, but on an ounce per ounce basis, nuts are actually associated with the lowest risk of premature death compared to any other food group. So I recommend a palmful of walnuts every day.
What is it that makes the walnut special? What makes that more beneficial than the pecan or any other kind of nut out there, my friend?
So it's the only nut that has been found to acutely improve artery function using something called flow-mediated dilation. So there's certain foods you can eat. The original foods were done with sausage and egg McMuffins, showing that within hours of eating a highly saturated fat meal, there is a crippling of artery function, dropping artery function in half, the ability for our arteries to relax normally in half within just hours of it going into our mouth. So we're talking negative consequences, not just kind of years or decades down the road to eating unhealthy, but literally within hours of consumption, whereas there are some foods that actually improve artery function acutely, again, within hours, that very day, after eating foods. And a number of foods can do it. Berries, for example, can do it. They're also featured in my Daily Dozen. Dark green leafy vegetables can do it. And not nuts in general, but walnuts can do it. They're also the highest, most concentrated source of the short chain omega-3 fatty acid, alpha-linolenic acid, compared to other nuts. And I think it's has the highest antioxidant count compared to other nuts. So there's a couple things that, like on paper, it seems to beat out other nuts on, but then when actually put to the test in these randomized controlled trials, you do see actually an improvement that you just don't see with peanuts or some of these other nuts. And so, look, I'm all for dietary diversity, especially to feed our gut microbiome. We should eat lots of different types of foods. But if you could just only choose one and you like them all equally well, might as well go for the walnuts.
All right. But let me ask you this, because I think the way that a lot of minds might work is that Well, Dr. Greger said if I eat walnuts, that's going to really help me out here. But I can still eat that. What did you say? Like sausage, egg, McMuffin, eat the walnuts, and that'll cancel each other out. Is that actually the case?
Okay, so that's not completely false, actually.
Okay.
So there are studies where you have somebody eat a burger, right? I think it was a beef and pork burger. Have someone eat a meat burger with or without avocado, right? They were measuring, I believe, IL-6, which is kind of the chief marker of the inflammation that goes along with old age. And you eat a burger, within literally hours after the consumption, you get a spike of this pro-inflammatory mediator in your bloodstream. That's a bad thing. Now, if you eat that exact same burger, but put some avocado on top, actually get some phytonutrients with your burger, then you still get a spike of inflammation, but it's a significantly smaller spike of inflammation. So does it cancel it? No, but it can indeed mediate it. A similar study was done comparing wild game with regular kind of supermarket store-bought meat. There's a study done in Australia, so they weren't doing venison, they were doing kangaroo meat. But they compared eating kangaroo meat to eating just supermarket beef and found a significantly less inflammation caused by the kangaroo meat, presumably since it's so lean, compared to the supermarket meat. Now, so look, okay, step in the right direction, better, right? But wouldn't we rather eat foods that actually have an anti-inflammatory effect, not just less pro-inflammatory, but actually either neutral or beneficial effect? So eating something like a white potato, neutral effect. Now better than pro-inflammatory, but eating like a purple potato actually gives you an anti-inflammatory effect. Lots of nice whole healthy foods like greens and berries and avocados alone without the meat. So yes, it does actually matter what you eat a lot. So if you're going to eat something that isn't healthy, there is actually benefit to adding some healthy food. So if you're going to eat a Twinkie, eating a Twinkie with your kale salad is better than eating the Twinkie alone. But my concern with all that is this kind of licensing effect. And so there are these studies showing that smokers who eat broccoli have significantly less carcinogens flowing throughout their body because the broccoli, this compound called sulforaphane within cruciferous family vegetables like cabbage family vegetables, broccoli, kale, collards, etc., so boosts your liver detox enzymes that you measure the amount of carcinogens smokers are peeing out in their urine significantly less if they've just had some broccoli beforehand. Now, it's a really significant effect, like cutting the amount of carcinogens in half. Of course, how about cutting them even more? Not smoking, obviously, is better. But if you are going to smoke, then eating broccoli definitely cuts down on carcinogen exposure. But I talk about in videos when I talk about this, I'm always concerned that I'm going to kind of give people an excuse to continue to smoke. Oh, yeah, smoking's not good for me, but maybe if I smoke and eat lots of broccoli, then then it's not as bad, which technically is true. But since it's so much better to stop smoking altogether, I'm almost hesitant to talk about this in my books, talk about this in my videos, because I'm afraid people will just be like, oh, well, I was going to quit, but now that I know the broccoli trick. So that's why I always emphasize in these videos that it's always would be better not to have that burger, period, not to smoke, period. But it's true. If you are going to do it, there are ways to mediate the impact.
Well, cheers to your honesty, my friend. I will toast a cup of coffee to that. I like that. I like the fact that you're just laying out the facts. And that's fascinating that broccoli has that effect among smokers. Obviously, as you said, way better, infinitely better not to smoke at all. But the broccoli has a way of kind of filtering out the system a little bit.
And in fact, what blew my mind was that the effect lasted an entire week. So what they did is had people eat barbecued meat, which has these polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, which is bad stuff on cigarette smoke and auto exhaust, etc. One of the reasons why meat is carcinogenic, cancer causing. And they had randomized people to, eat the meat with or without broccoli. And same thing with the smoking, those who had with broccoli, significantly less, again, measured carcinogens in their urine, significantly less. Now, of course, those who were eating vegetarian didn't have any of these carcinogens, so that would be better. But what blew my mind is that literally a week later, they had the groups eat meat again. And even the group that had eaten the broccoli a week before. Now, if I remember, it was a lot of broccoli, like more broccoli than people would normally eat, like 3 cups of broccoli. But the fact that a week later, your liver was still so revved up that it decreased exposure to these carcinogens in meat, suggests that, if you got, some July 4th barbecue coming up and you're going to slip off the wagon and not eat the healthiest food, you can prep for that. You can get your liver ready to go even the weekend before.
Interesting. I think that maybe we should give that tip to college kids, because I'm sure that they put their liver through quite a bit over those 4 years, man.
The poor
I'm telling
livers.
you. Let's shift gears and talk about protein. Typical calculation for the question, how much protein does a person need, is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. But your book, the How Not to Age Cookbook, actually talks about protein restriction. So are you of the assessment that by and large, we're just getting way too much, and maybe that's even detrimental for our health?
When it comes to protein and aging, less, maybe more. Reducing protein intake, meaning restricting protein intake down to recommended levels, is the only thing that I could find that could help block all 11 of the aging pathways, which I go through in the book. It boosts NAD, improves immunity, decreasing oxidative stress, inflammation, insulin resistance, as well as cancer-promoting growth hormone, IGF-1. Surprisingly, there is no benefit to adding extra protein to the diets of older men and women in terms of muscle mass, muscle strength, or physical performance. Instead, with the excess protein that most Americans get, what it does is it causes a drop in the pro-longevity hormone called FGF21, a drop in testosterone, a worsening of the age-accelerating hormone mTOR. So we should really stick to that recommended 0.8 grams per healthy kilogram of body weight, which comes out to be about 45 grams a day for the average height woman, 55 a day for the average height man. Most people are getting too much.
So how then, if it's not an abundance of protein, does one go about maintaining or building muscle mass as they age themselves?
So I have a whole chapter on preserving your muscles. The most important thing is use it or lose it. Regular resistance exercise is considered the most effective strategy to prevent age-related muscle weakness, treat muscle loss, and improve physical function. Even a temporary drop in physical activity levels, like you're laid up after a surgery or something, can rapidly worsen matters, particularly among those who are older. Taking extra protein, little to no effect on muscle mass strength and performance. Plant-based sources of protein, when you're getting a recommended source, are preferable due to the baggage that accompanies protein from animal sources, as well as the prebiotic, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and alkaline-forming aspects of plant-based nutrition. Other things that can improve musculature in the elderly: 2 cups a day of blueberries was found to improve functional mobility. A daily half teaspoon of garlic powder a day may improve muscle mass, and a tablespoon a day of natural cocoa powder has been shown to improve muscle strength and function. In terms of supplements, they've almost universally failed. So HMB, magnesium, omega-3s, vitamin D, they join protein and amino acid supplements in failing to provide good evidence of efficacy. But a teaspoon a day of creatine, so 3 grams a day, may improve muscle function in older adults when combined with strength training. It doesn't work on its own, but when combined with strength training, can actually boost muscle mass in the elderly.
All right. Speaking of muscle function, wink, wink, let's talk about sexual health. How about that? What is the connection between blood flow and the diet and the performance in the bedroom with those fun types of exercises? And to take it a step further, are there recipes in your cookbook that can help us all out in that area as well?
Yes, indeed. And when I was ready to take on the Preserving Your Sex Life chapter, now I thought it would be all just blood flow, but it turns out there's all sorts of other interesting facets. So there's actually a distinctive body odor of the elderly.
What?
Due to a chemical that we start producing as early as age 40 called 2-nonenal, that has this unpleasant kind of grassy, greasy odor, which is caused by the oxidation of omega-7 fats that we are increasingly exuded from our skin as we age. So there's like a reason that grandma and grandpa smell the way they do, but there's something we can do about it. We can cut that odor by eating 2 things: plain white button mushrooms and chlorophyll-rich dark green leafy vegetables. And we actually have randomized controlled trials, which actually go and they had people sniff people's armpits, people's breath, people's toilets after use, I mean, and confined, those two things can significantly improve. So you can imagine how that might improve intimacy a little bit. But in terms of function, yes, sexual responses in both men and women are related to blood circulation. So dietary and lifestyle habits that are good for the heart are also good for the genitals. And indeed, men and women randomized to healthier diets can experience a significant improvement in sexual function and due perhaps to the anti-inflammatory effects, the blood pressure dilating compounds in certain fruits and vegetables like watermelon and beets, and also lower phthalate and BPA exposure from fewer processed foods. So it's not just eating more plants, but fewer processed foods, where some of the plastics and packaging material chemicals can actually migrate into the food and have these hormone disrupting effects. In terms of sexual desire, there's a dangerous and ineffective drug prescribed for women called flubanserin that should be avoided. Similarly, there's not enough safety data on prescribing testosterone for women to warrant FDA approval. However, lavender and bitter orange aromatherapy may help. Now, it's difficult to do placebo-controlled trials because you smell it or you don't smell it, but lavender and bitter orange aromatherapy seem to help. Supplemental testosterone can help low libido in men, though the risks likely outweigh any benefit. Thankfully, there are safe, natural ways to boost testosterone with diet and lifestyle changes, such as eating less than a teaspoon a day of fenugreek seeds and avoiding obesity, sleep deprivation, and beer. The spice saffron can improve the sexual impairment caused by Prozac-like antidepressant drugs. Maca root can help increase sexual desire in men and sexual function in women. And ashwagandha, another root, can improve some aspects of female sexual function, but at the risk of liver toxicity, so I would not recommend it. I could go on.
No, I mean, honestly, I'm hearing about half of what it is you're saying, not because your connection is poor. I'm literally thinking back to that study you were talking about where people volunteer to smell armpits and toilets. And we all can agree that science is cool, science is rad. There's a lot of things that we would do for the name of science. But for the love of Pearl, man, would you volunteer to do that study?
How much are you paying me? All right.
Exactly.
A, how much are you paying me? And B, how do I get enrolled in the watermelon study? Like that's that's what I'm talking about.
Thank you. Thank you, man. Alive. Holy
and 'tis
smokes.
the season. Look, we're live now, right now. You can go to the grocery store and get wonderful seeded watermelon. They just came on the market about a week ago, and I'm already eating too much. I'm stuffing myself, but it's a bit. Now they're not perfectly ripe yet, but I tell you, any watermelon is better than no watermelon.
Amen to that, my friend. I'm a big fan of watermelon. Funny thing is, like, when I was overweight, I couldn't stand watermelon.
Interesting.
But now I've lost weight. My taste buds change. I can't get enough of that. Have you done any research on that?
Do you do the seeds or you do not do the seeds?
Absolutely do the seeds. Spit them out.
Thank you. Do the seeds. The seeds are actually healthy for you. You can actually eat them, chew them up. They're beneficial and they're tasty. I don't know. I don't know where this seedless thing happened, but yeah.
I think a watermelon without seeds is just kind of weird to me. Like, I enjoy the seed. Like, you grow up the way it's part of the experience.
Right. Yeah, I know. So anyway, look, if you don't like seeds, don't eat the seeds. But if you have not tried seeded watermelon, give it a try. I think you will be pleasantly surprised.
All right, guys, as a reminder, go ahead and drop your questions in the comment or in the chat. We're going to open up the doctor's mailbag in just a little bit. I want to flash forward and talk about something specific for women. Calcium and iron, those are two big concerns for women as they age. A lot of women are still kind of hung up. We see this all the time in the comments that we have coming in, confused as how to get this without eating meat, without having dairy in their diet. Your cookbook addresses that. What are some simple ways that women might want to incorporate foods that are plant-based, make sure that they're still getting the decent amount that they need?
Now, as women age, they actually may worry less about iron because they may stop losing iron every month. But regardless, everybody needs to ensure they get enough. And it's a matter of eating healthy sources. Yes, there's lots of iron in beef. There's also lots of saturated fat and hormones and other things that we don't want. So how do we get, again, it's like a package deal. It's like, how are you going to get your protein? You got to get it with the fiber and the folate and the phytonutrients, or you're going to get it with the saturated fat, cholesterol, et cetera, et cetera. And so we can get iron rich sources and combine it with vitamin C rich foods. What are we talking about? We're talking about citrus, tropical fruits, broccoli, bell peppers, eating foods at the same meal, having it in our stomach with iron rich sources such as legumes, seeds, dark green leafy vegetables, having iron rich foods and having vitamin C-rich foods in our stomach at the same time can improve the absorption of iron. You don't want to go out of your way to improve iron absorption unless you know you actually need it. I have some really interesting videos about the sweet spot in terms of ferritin, about your storage iron. Now, you need enough iron. Iron is a double-edged sword. You need to have enough iron to make blood cells, red blood cells, and we make some ungodly number of red blood cells every second. It's like 1 million a second, something like that. That's not too far off. It's just unbelievable, and we need iron to do that. If we don't, you can actually get anemic. You have a low red blood cell count. Okay, we don't want that. But having too much iron, iron acts as a pro-oxidant and can cause the formation of free radicals. Now, we evolved to, and so ferritin is a measure of how much iron you have stored up. There's higher ferritin levels are associated with higher risk of cancer, higher risk of diabetes, higher risk of all sorts of bad things. You say, wait a second, why would we evolve to have these unhealthy levels of stored iron? And the reason is, when we're evolving, what we're at risk of? We are at risk of blood loss, sudden, acute blood loss all the time. And so literally, you can lose iron like that if you get cut by some saber-toothed tiger, but it would take a long time for to build back up. So having those extra iron stores allows you to survive rapid blood loss. Okay, now fast forward to the present day where we have blood transfusion, right? If we really lose too much blood, there's another way we can get you blood other than having those background stores. And so there's a sweet spot of ferritin. We want to have basically as low as possible storage levels without obviously getting too low and becoming anemic. And there's actually this amazing study I did a video about where they took people and they randomized them to donate blood or not, right? And so basically it's like a bloodletting study, but they did the blood donation and found a rapid, significant decrease in cancer rates in those who were donating blood. So donating blood is not just a mitzvah. Donating blood is not just a good thing to do, but it's actually good for yourself, decreases cancer rates. And we think it's because they were decreasing the excess iron that the typical person has, but typical plant-based person, vegetarians and vegans, have on average, the perfect ferritin level, that low, safe ferritin level that doesn't give them that increase in diabetes, doesn't give them that increase in cancer risk. So that's great. Now, of course, if you do become anemic, do need more iron. The primary cause is menorrhagia, excess menstrual blood loss. In that case, almost sometimes no matter what you eat, you won't be able to stay on top of it, in which case there's IV iron, and there's all sorts of interesting supplemental iron sources. I have some videos coming up talking about what may be the best type and the best dosing. It's like an every other day dosing with a specific dose of a specific type of iron, which is in terms of best for decreasing toxicity to your gastrointestinal tract, because again, causes those free radicals. So it's very difficult for people to stick with them. But again, food is always the best way to go. In terms of calcium, we don't want to be taking calcium supplements. That unnatural spike in calcium in your blood causes a hypercoagulable state, meaning it increases the clotability of your blood such that it increases, which is why we think it increases the risk of cardiovascular disease. Those who take calcium supplements at a higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. That's why we don't want to take calcium supplements, because we get this unnatural spike in calcium in our blood. And so, okay, if we want to get just little bits throughout the day to get at least 600 milligrams a day, we need to be eating calcium-rich foods. Where are we going to get them from? We want low oxalate, dark green leafy vegetables, the way to go, which is all greens except for spinach, beet greens, and Swiss chard, which are super healthy foods, but they're just stingy with their calcium. They don't like giving it up. But all the other grains, that's really the healthiest source of getting enough calcium. But no matter how much calcium, how bioavailable the calcium is in those dark green leafy vegetables, your bioavailability drops to 0 if you let them rot in your fridge. Instead, you should buy the cookbook, or even better, go to your local public library, borrow the cookbook, make some recipes that make greens taste delicious, so you get the best of both worlds.